Hi, and welcome to Historymakers TV. I'm Matt Prater. Today we're speaking with Bronwen Healy. She's a former drug-addicted prostitute. She's a speaker and author and founder of the Hope Foundation. Welcome to the program, Bronwen. How are you?
Good, Matt. Thanks for having me.
Now, your story is really an amazing testimony. Take us back to the age of 16. You're at a crossroads in life. What was life like for you then?
For me, at the age of 16, I'd grown up a good kid, had parents that loved me, and at the age of 16, someone offered me some pot, and I thought, you know what, I deserve a treat. And at the time, I thought that was a treat. And so for me, at the age of 16, I tried pot, not having any idea that between the ages of 16 and 24, I'd try every drug under the sun. I went from pot through to acid to speed to ecstasy between the ages of 16 and 18. And then at the age of 18, fell in love with a heroin addict. I thought it was love and tried heroin. And that led me down a pathway to destruction that lasted between the age of 18 and 24.
So a lot of people say that starting with light drugs leads to a downward spiral. What would you say to that?
I say that's rubbish. And I actually say that I started, I go into high schools now and I have a message called Every Choice Has a Consequence. And I actually say that I started smoking cigarettes at the age of 14. And for me, that was the gateway. Because then I tried alcohol, and then I tried pot, and then I tried this and that and that. And, like I say now, like I hope that when I sat down, you didn't think, I'm pretty sure she used to be a drug-addicted prostitute because of the life transformation, but I had no idea. And so going into schools and saying to the kids, like, every choice has a consequence. And they go, ah. And I say, like, cigarettes was the hardest one for me to kick.
So when you were at rehab, tell us what it was like for you. How did you get off the habit?
Well, for me, between those ages of 18 and 24 on heroin, I turned to crime and prostitution and did all manner of things I never thought that I would do. And at the age of 24, there was a batch of heroin on the streets here in Brisbane that was killing people. And I remember thinking, wow, this stuff kills people. Now, that wasn't new information, I did know that. But this batch was particularly killing people, and I thought, it could kill me. And so at the age of 24, I found help through a doctor. And when I went into his office, I remember thinking to myself, this doctor treats drug addicts, maybe he could help me too. Not even realizing after 6 years as a heroin addict that I was one. And I sat in his office and I told him all my issues and I said, this is my drug history. And he said to me, that's okay. I don't think drugs are your problem. I think your problem is you've got a hole in your soul only Jesus can fill. And I was like, wow, you're crazy. And I remember thinking to myself, I just don't know what this guy's talking about. And he said to me, you need to go to rehab. You need to go to a support home. He sent me to a support home. And before that, I'd been an inner city dweller. So he said, you need to go to a support home at Mount Gravatt. And I was like, where is that? And he said, it's a 15-minute drive down the freeway. And I got to this support home. It was run by Christians, and I thought they were all insane. And basically, part of the program was prayer meetings. Part of the program was church. Part of the meeting, they would come in and sing Jesus songs on a guitar, and I would be like, what is going on? Where am I? And I felt a bit like the Twilight Zone. I didn't realize it was a conspiracy from heaven and that the Father of all creation had been waiting for me for that moment to choose him. And so 6 weeks into the program, one day at church, walked up the front, don't remember how I got there, said basically along the lines of, okay, God, if everything that these people have said and shown me about you is true, then I dare you to take me. And he did. And that began my life transformation journey at the age of 24.
And did everyone notice the massive change in your life
Huge.
after that?
It was huge. It started in my eyes. It started in my eyes because when I'd used drugs, people were just like, you look like death warmed up. And so the light started to come through my eyes. And then the next thing that they noticed was my language, because I used to swear a lot. They would have never let me in front of a TV camera, pretty much. And
well, they may have. There just would have been a lot of beeps, probably.
Yeah, a lot of beeps. The producer would have not been very happy. And so they noticed that, and then they noticed my attitude, because I used to be really violent and angry, and that started to change, and they were like, wow. And then the other people in the home were like, wow, this is really something, because if it can work for her, it could work for me. And then there was a revival in the home, and I've just been recording the audio version of my first book, Trophy of Grace, which has been an incredible experience to read that out loud and journeying back through my own story. And as I've been reading it, I've been like, wow, I remember that, I remember that, I remember that. not all the good bits, I remember that too. But I remember there was a revival in the house one weekend, and it was a revival of joy, and we were just laughing like wild, crazy, hilarious people who had all been former drug addicts, who now had the joy of the Lord as their strength. And it's been an incredible journey.
And you've wanted to turn your mess into your message. You're now helping others through the Hope Foundation. Tell us what that organisation does now.
So the Hope Foundation was birthed out of, when Trophy of Grace first came out 10 years ago, people started to say, if it worked for you, can it work for me? And I was like, I don't know, ask Jesus. I mean, he's free for all. And I started to try and find places to refer people to, and there was nowhere specific for them. And it was like, I just want an organisation that comes alongside women wanting life change from addictions and or the sex industry. Here, please, Lord. And I couldn't find anywhere. And so 7 years ago, I had a chat with a guy who was a lawyer. And I said, what does it take to start a charity? And he's like, a lot of money and a lot of hard work. And I was like, oh, I didn't have either. And he said, oh, I could help you, and let's see what God does. And I was like, yeah, let's do that. And so the Hope Foundation was birthed. And it really was me choosing to say, I want to use my past to help change other people's futures. And I want my past to count for something. I don't want it to be wasted. And so I started running Valentine's Day and Christmas in July outreaches 8 years ago, and asked people for donations. It was like, can you give me free stuff? Because we don't have any money, and we really just want to lavish these women. And so over the years, that's turned into what is now still our annual Valentine's Day and Christmas in July celebration lunches. And the women get lavished with chocolates and flowers and cards and gifts and all things love and all things valued. And our message at Hope Foundation is, you are loved, valued and created with a purpose. And I think for me, the joy and the delight of leading a team and leading a team of volunteers with this core message is, I believe it. And I believe it for myself, and I know I can look back over my own story and see what happened when I received the revelation that I was loved. And then that turned into the revelation that I was valued by this creator of the universe, who I was the apple of his eye and I was precious in his sight, and then I wanted to use my past to count for something. And so the joy and privilege of that. So 7 years ago it was me, and helping as many women as came along, and now there's a team of, we've got 4 paid staff, which is a miracle 7 years later, and a volunteer team of around 20, and we come alongside women every day.
And you have a drop-in centre, drop-in space. What happens there?
That space is open Monday through Friday except Wednesday, because that's our holy Sabbath rest day, our fun day. And it's open to the women between 10 and 2 on those 4 days. And Mondays and Fridays they can come in and do one-on-one support with our case managers. And then Tuesday we run a book study or a Bible study. And on those days there can be up to 20 women, babies, kids, having morning tea. At the moment we've been studying Battlefield of the Mind by Joyce Meyer, and seeing literal miracles every week as the women choose to press in. And then on Thursdays we run workshops, so we get people to come in and help us love these women and come alongside us while we come alongside them. So people offer, I speak at a lot of different events, and people will say, I do art and craft, or I make greeting cards, or I do this, or I do cooking, can I help? And we're like, yes, please. And so for us on Thursdays, that's the workshop. And then we have free lunch every day at 12 o'clock. Yeah.
Now, I love the name Hope Foundation. And, I'm part of a church called New Hope. There's lots of hopes in names of churches these days. What is the message of hope that you want to bring to our viewers today? I
think for me, it's where there's a heartbeat, there's hope. And I can look back over my own journey, and it's fresh in me from reading the audio version. And it's like, wow, I once was lost and now I'm found. And I was blind and now I see. And I say to my kids, I've got 3 incredible daughters, and it's just like, you guys have the best mum for you, because I once was really, really lost and now I'm really, really found. And so you'll never pull the wool over my eyes, and God's going to use me and you as my daughters to change the world. And they believe it. They're like, okay, all right, let's do that. And so for me, it's very much where there's a heartbeat, there's hope. Don't ever lose hope. And God's given us hope, he's given us purpose, and he's given each one of us a plan and a destiny. And I believe that there's such a beauty in drawing out the greatness in somebody that they don't see exists yet. And so we come alongside women and tell them that they're loved, tell them that they're valued, tell them that they're created with a purpose, until they start to believe it.
Because a lot of girls that are trapped in the sex industry, or a lot of people that are addicted to drugs, actually don't think there's a way out. They think they're stuck in that lifestyle for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
What's often the trigger for people to actually get them out of that industry?
Sometimes it's something like me, like there was a bad batch of heroin and it's killing people. Sometimes it's, one of the girls that they knew that was in the sex industry has been murdered or she's gone missing. Sometimes it's just something inside of them that says, you know what, I'm nearly 30 years old and I'd like to get married and have babies. They hear about the Hope Foundation, it's word of mouth now. So in the last 2 years since we've had the drop-in space, we've gone from reaching 30 women a month to 30 women a week.
Wow.
And it's word of mouth. It's like, these guys are Christians, but they're just going to love you.
Now, I've read Trophy of Grace, your life story. I'm curious to know about this other title for a book you've written. It's called I Have Issues, Don't You? What's all that about?
That was my response to, I just see God move so beautifully when people say that they need him. And that was people in the church, that was people out of the church. That's me, that's my kids, that's life. And so I was reading through the Gospels about 3 or 4 years ago and I was just like, he responds really well when people say, Jesus, help me. And so I just wanted to write a book about it. So I went through the Gospels, found some Gospel stories where he responded to blind dudes shouting his name. And I love the blind dudes because people were like, excuse me, quiet, that's Jesus. And they were like, that's the point. And they got louder and louder and louder until they got their breakthrough. And so just really encouraging people, surrender, he loves it. And I say to people, try less, surrender more.
And one of the other books you've done is called Her Past Is Not Her Future. It's a collection of stories. Tell us about that one.
Yeah, that was birthed out of my heart of having all of these phenomenal women in my life and not wanting to exploit them and their stories. So some of them, they've changed their names or they've put different photos in the back. But it was just, these stories are phenomenal stories. These stories that we're living the modern day gospel. We're preaching the gospel and the gospel's happening and lives are being transformed and they all bring glory to the Lord. And so it was just, I just said to them, hey, do you guys want to write your stories? And they were like, yeah. And so that became Her Past Is Not Her Future. We're actually in the process at the moment of gathering a whole new batch of stories that will be stories from the Haven. Yeah.
Now, before we wrap up, is there an inspirational quote or a thought that you want to share with our viewers? There might be people that are watching this that are thinking, you know what, I don't know how I'm going to get out of my lifestyle. Would you just share something with our listeners out of what you've been through about how to get set free from the place that you've been in?
I think one of the things for me, Matt, and the Hope Chicks would say, here she goes again, over and over and over. But one of it's just less of me and more of you, Lord, because on my own I can't be trusted. And that whole, what I've done is not who I am. Who I am is his. And there was just years of my life where I didn't know that. Once I knew it, once I found out, it was just like, I'm going to run with that. And so for the last 14 years, I've run with it every day. And every day is another opportunity to choose life and to choose joy. And I just think the kingdom of God is such a topsy-turvy thing. It's like his joy is our strength. We give him our weakness, he gives us strength. He's always the God of the upgrade. So I gave him my past and he gave me hope for my future.
It's good news. And what about the website? If people want to find out more about Hope Foundation, where do they go?
It's hopefoundation.org.au.
And before we go, I noticed the other thing that I see on your Facebook. You do this grateful thing every day. What's all that about? So grateful for me was 3 years ago, just after the floods, we had a rental property that one of our women and her 3 kids lived in at Rockley, and we lost everything. And we'd gone over to a church, Nexus Church on the north side, and they'd raised money for her to get a new fridge and a new washing machine, and we'd gone to receive that, and there was a woman there talking about this grateful, 365 grateful, and she just takes photos all day and uploads a photo at the end of the day about something she's grateful for. And we'd just lost everything in this home, and this woman and her 3 kids were living with me and my 3 kids, and it was a big deal. And I wanted to be grateful and I wanted to choose gratefulness, and so I turned to my friend and I said, I'm going to do that. And that was 3 years ago, and it's changed my life. Like, I don't think I was an ungrateful person before, but I'm literally constantly looking throughout the day of things that I can be grateful for, and an alarm goes off on my phone at 9 p.m. and it says grateful, and I collate my photos and I just think, man, my life is awesome. Some days there's so many things. And it's just changed my heart. It's changed the culture of my heart to one of gratefulness in every season, and I'm grateful that I've received that revelation. Well, we are grateful that you've joined us on Historymakers TV today, and I just think you've got such an inspirational story, and your books and all the work you're doing with Hope Foundation. It's just Absolutely amazing. I reckon you're a history maker, Bronwen. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Matt.
Well, stay tuned for Historymakers TV. We've got more coming up soon.